Today we are talking about inequalities. Go ahead and write your name on here, like always. We will glue these in, but just in case they end up falling out or something of the like. That is my name. Okay, today we are solving inequalities. Inequalities get solved the exact same as equations do. The difference is that they have a different symbol in the middle, and there is one extra little thing that we have to do when we are solving it if a certain thing happens. So let's first talk about the four inequality symbols. We have a less than, a greater than, a less than or equal to, and a greater than or equal to. A less than symbol is represented by an arrow pointing left. Well, not an arrow, just the point of an arrow. So that is a less than symbol. A greater than symbol is the same thing pointed to the right. A less than or equal to symbol is the same thing as a less than symbol with a line below it. And a greater than or equal to symbol is the same thing as a greater than symbol with a line below it. So these are our four symbols. Once we have solved our inequalities as well, we are also going to graph them on a number line. When we graph our inequalities on a number line, for a less than and a greater than symbol, I've talked about already. With a less than and a greater than symbol, we are going to use an open circle. With a less than, we do an open circle and our arrow goes to the left. For greater than, we do an open circle and our arrow goes to the right. Okay, for less than or equal to, the arrows go the same way. How we know it's or equal to is we color in that circle. So less than or equal to is going to be a colored in circle, a closed in dot with an arrow going to the left. And then greater than or equal to is a colored in circle with an arrow going to the right. Okay, so just a quick thing before we move on. Here is how I remember which one's less than and which one's greater than. If you are facing your paper and you use your thumbs, you make an L with your left hand, this L turns perfectly into a less than. The other one is greater than. So that's how I remember is left is L is less than. So left, L, less, all go together. And it also points to the left. If you notice, these arrows point the same way, these arrows point the same way, and then these arrows point the same way, okay? Any questions right now? Okay, so I told you there is only one extra little step of solving that we have to remember, and that is when we have to flip our sign. When you multiply, I'm just going to write M-U-L-T, or divide by a negative number when you are solving your inequality. So when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip your sign. So what that means is if it was less than, it becomes greater than, and vice versa. If it was less than or equal to, it becomes greater than or equal to. So it just flips the direction it's pointing. Other than that little piece and graphing it at the end, these are the exact same type of things that we solved last week on Monday and Tuesday. or last week on Wednesday and Friday. All right, we are going to get started with our examples. Any questions right now? Okay, so it's the same thing. Treat it just like a two-step equation. Only difference is that it's an inequality sign instead of an equal sign. So I've got negative 3x plus 3 is less than or equal to negative 12. We're going to start by getting rid of that plus 3. Opposite of adding 3 is subtracting 3. So we're going to have negative 3x on the left. We have not added, or we have not multiplied or divided by a negative, so it's still less than or equal to. And then negative 12 minus 3 is negative 15. Okay, next thing that we need to do is get rid of that negative 3. Negative 3 is being multiplied by x. The opposite of multiplying is dividing, so we are going to divide both sides by negative 3. On the left side, those negative 3's cancel, so we have x. For our inequality symbol, because we divided by a negative, we need to remember to flip our sign. So instead of a less than or equal to sign, we now have a greater than or equal to sign. If you need to put a little note to yourself so that when you look back in your notes, you remember you flipped, you can't. And then negative 15 divided by negative 3 is positive 5. Okay, so our solution here is x is greater than or equal to 5. You could have just written it once in that box instead of writing it above and below that box, or above and in. And then from there, we are going to go ahead and graph that. So to graph that, we are going to put a closed circle at 5. Since it is or equal to, we're going to put a closed circle above 5. And then the numbers that are greater than or equal to 5 are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're going to draw an arrow to the right. Okay, any questions on that first example? Okay, well, let's keep going then. So the next one we've got is 7x plus 5 is greater than negative 2. So for this one, we're going to start solving the same way. We want to get rid of that plus 5 by subtracting 5 from both sides. We're going to get 7x is greater than negative 2, stop talking. Negative 2 minus 5 is negative 7. Okay, from there, we need to get x by itself. 7 times x is what's currently happening on the left. So we're going to divide both sides by 7. And you'll get x is, did we divide by a negative? No, we divided by a positive 7. So we do not need to flip our sign. So x is greater than negative 1. Because negative 7 divided by 7 is negative 1. So my answer is x is greater than negative 1. For greater than, I need to use an open circle. And then the numbers that are bigger than negative 1 are 0, 1, 2, 3 to the right. Okay, any questions right now? Okay, go ahead and flip this over then. Let's talk about the ones on the back. Alright, so this is what we looked at when we did 1.2. When we looked at the two different types of fraction problems. If you want to write a note to yourself, if it's going to help you, on a problem like this where we have a big fraction, the first thing that we need to do is multiply. I'm just going to write a little note up here that says multiply first. On a problem like this, where we have a little fraction and then we're adding or subtracting, we need to get rid of the adding or subtracting first. So you put a note to yourself that says add/sub first. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So in this problem on the left here, everything is getting divided by -1. So our first step is that we need to multiply both sides of our equation by -1. So -1 times -1. On the left side, multiplying by -1 cancels those out. So I just have x plus 2. I just multiplied by a negative. Because I multiplied by a negative, I need to flip my sign. So now, instead of having a less than or greater than sign, I need a less than sign. I misspoke. So instead of greater than, it needs to be less than. Okay. So 8 times -1 is -8. Okay. From there, I want to get x by itself. The opposite of that plus 2 is -2. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I get x is less than -8 minus 2 is -10. So x is less than -10. I do want to go ahead and graph this. So I'll do an open circle at -10 because less than is an open circle. Less than or equal to would be a closed circle. And then I need to draw my arrow to the left for less than. Okay. Any questions before we do our last one and then get started working on our assignment? Alright, our very last one then, we already discussed, we need to add or subtract first on a problem like this. So I've got x over 5 minus 2 is less than or equal to 4. I'm going to start by adding that 2. So now I have x over 5 is less than or equal to, because I have not added or I have not multiplied or divided by a negative. 4 plus 2 is 6. And right here, this is division. The opposite of dividing by 5 is multiplying. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5. And we get x is less than or equal to 6 times 5, which is 30. There's no need to flip anything because I have not multiplied or divided by a negative. Less than or equal to, I'm going to do a closed-in circle. And then my arrow goes to the left. Okay, any questions right now? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording then.